Hey guys, it's Anne with a Reaper ToolBox Live. Yes, I'm back this week. I've saved you from Ed. We're going to resume our painting of Dance of Death by Julie Guthrie. Let's get to it. Yeah, now we can go to wing cam. All right, good. Yay, wing cam. I'm like, are we at wing cam yet? No, all right. Hi guys. Hello everybody. Yay! Oh yes, we are doing a giveaway. I should just say that right now. We do have a paint that's kind of rare, spectral white. Here he is. There you go. So spectral white is kind of goes along with things like maggot white and ghost white, things like that, where it's kind of a colored off white. So it's good for highlighting purples and things. This one is kind of a pale violet red. So it's a pretty color. It's nice if you're making kind of a purpley ghost. You want to use purpley colors in your shadows. You can use this as your base coat, highlight up to white, and then take it down with purple. In fact, you can mix in a little bit of runic purple, and they go together pretty well. So that's one aspect of the giveaway. And then we have Death Shrouds. I believe was last year's Ghoulie Bag promo mini. So it's the translucent black Death Shroud. Pretty wicked, actually. So those who win the giveaways will get one of the Death Shrouds and one of the bottles of paint. And I don't know when we're next going to do Spectral White, so you may have to wait a while if you don't get in on these. It is not this year's Ghoulie Bag promo, I can tell you that. Oh, hi, Frierick? Is it Frierick? Frierick. It's your first time watching live. It's nice to meet you. Everybody wants the paint. Hi. No non-zero value. That's a good one. Apple knees. There's a whole bunch of people I've never seen before. Plus normal people. Normal people. I'm sorry to insult you all, normal people. No Drown Nipple Pink today. Apparently Ed Tazalanche rather. Ed oversaturated the market on Drown Nipple Pink. It got reckless and gave away like 10 or 12 bottles. So Collins had looked up. Yeah, Dark Knight Azareth has it. Ed gave away a bunch of it last week, so we thought we dug out some bottles of Spectral White and thought we would do that. So to get actually on topic, and also apologies in advance, I'm very sniffly and allergy-full today, so I'm going to be sniffling a lot and have Kleenex close at hand. So, but at least you get me, and at least we'll paint. See sniffles. So today I thought I really want to get these wings at a more done stage, and I kind of want to try the technique we were using last time with painting the purple and then glazing over with the green. So I thought I would try to kind of speed paint them with the big brush. So today we're using a big brush, a number 2, very, very large brush. You can see how big it is against the wing there. Pretty much, if you're doing a big area like this and you want to wet blend or paint it very quickly, do try to use a bigger brush. You could even use a flat if you wanted. I think I even have a number 4 Reaper flat. Yeah, Taklon. This would also be a good brush to use for this sort of thing. On a big flat surface, a flat brush works very well. It covers a lot of ground, and it makes applying the paint quick and easy. So I realized that my highlights were a little bit off on this lower part of the wing. This wing sits on the dragon like this in this position, so really the highlights fall on the upper part of the wing fold. So that's why I'm kind of tackling that this way this time. I'm making my shadow on this lower part, and I'm going upper on the highlight. We're going to try to do that.
Thanks for the sub,
we can make it work. We got a sub? Methrand for 3 months. Sweet. Thank you. Yay for subs. Subs make it likely that we continue doing this awesome stuff. Yes. You got to keep Justin in a job, guys. More subs, better. He's the one who championed Twitch for Reaper, so, you know, we got to show Reaper that Twitch is awesome and that we should keep doing it. All right. So I'm pretty much just coating the whole membrane and trying to kind of get a quick blend in that purple. Pardon me while I grab my Kleenex. There we go. All right. Man, it's been really dry in Texas lately, thus the allergies. We had a lot of rain in the first part of the summer, so I was feeling great, but now it's like all the dust everywhere is just in the air. All the dying plants. How do you subscribe? There should be a subscribe button at the top of your page, your Twitch page, And if you have Amazon Prime, remember guys, you can get actually subscribe for free along with your Amazon Prime membership. So it should give you an option. If you go up to subscribe and look at your options, it should say subscribe for free with Amazon Prime. The downside of Amazon Prime sub is that you must remember to renew it. It does not auto-renew because they kind of want you to spread it around, hypothetically. But yeah, so you can do that. Or you could just subscribe. Actually subscribe. Oh, in the app. Ooh. Now you've got me.
Should still be in the top right, I believe.
Should still be in the top right?
Yeah.
Justin says should still be in the top right. All right, so we got that purple, but I want it brighter.
You have to make sure your Amazon Prime account, I think, is connected to your Twitch account in order for it to recognize your...
Yes, you do have to merge. It's not hard. Like, I managed it, and I am not technologically graceful. You may have to kind of, look it up, Google it.
Actually, there's a link that goes periodically in the chat that's supposed to, if MooBot's doing its job.
Yeah.
That has a link to the exact instructions on how to do it.
Oh, nice. How convenient.
Yes.
All right, so I have to pause for a second because, unfortunately, I've been talking and not painting.
Oh.
Yep, and there it is. Non-zero value. Subscribe to Twitch Prime. Yay, you found it. All right, so I have to pause because, essentially, I've been wet blending this. But the problem is that now it's started to dry because I was talking to you guys and not painting. When you're wet blending, when you see it start to dry, where some streaks are starting to dry, you've got to stop. Because if you keep trying to blend on top of this, you're going to strip up paint. And you don't want that. So we got to pause, and that means we're going to do our next membrane. Because, that's a great thing about having a dragon wing. There's always more to paint. I'm trying to convince myself that's the great thing about having a dragon wing. It's kind of like eating like squid, right? The more you chew, the more there is. Something like that. I have heard that. And I also don't think that is necessarily a great thing. So, painting wings is the most monotonous part. Is in the top right on the app, but you'll wait for the link. Okay, good deal. Hopefully, it comes through for you. All right. So, doing the top part of the wing now, and I'm going to try to keep moving. I want to do mostly the top half. Or at least start my gradient right here at the top half because that's, you can see, let's see if I can move. There we go. So you can see with the light falling on the wing when it's wet that it really kind of starts to fall away into black darkness once the light hits here. So we want to keep all this lower part of the wing black for sure because we are still painting a black dragon, but we can start making our purple gradient up here. So here it'll be just a really dark purple. It'll still look black for the most part. And that'll still let us preserve the image, the illusion that we're painting a black dragon, even though we're using all these colors in it. I get a little stronger up near the top.
Non-zero value had a reasonable
question. Does it
question.
help to use a retarder when blending like this? Non-zero, I really don't. To be frank, I find that it affects the consistency of the paint. So I'm not a big drying retarder fan. Instead, I just tend to use my paint very thick and use a lot of it. So my paint on my palette, I'm going to try to show you guys paint consistency here while that kind of dries. This is almost straight up base coat consistency. So like, I've got a little water in it. You can see that it's maybe a little bit thin up there. Here, Twitch chat is in the way. Twitch chat, you're in the way. There we go. So you can see, if I scrape it thin, you can kind of see through it, right? But it's still really close to base coat. It's still very thick, almost like it's right out of the bottle. So when I put this on the miniature and I use a lot of it, essentially, this keeps it wet for longer. The thicker your paint is, the more of it you have on there, the longer it will stay wet. If you use very little thin paint, it dries very quickly, like when we're layering. Then it's very, very fast drying. But when you're using a thicker paint and you are applying a lot of it and you're continually working with it, and that's why you want to use a big brush, because this big brush lets you essentially continually work this area. And as long as you're working with it, it's not going to dry when you've got that much paint on it. Here there's our wing there. You can see that's all kind of dried. You can kind of see where my gradient went, where it was really dark down here, and then you can see it step up toward a lighter purple. Man, I am just very sniffly today. I apologize to everybody as I continually dance back and forth with my sniffly nose. But all right, we'll see. I took an extra allergy pill, so hopefully it kicks in and we are all good. In the meantime, what do I want to do? I want to actually do another round of wet blending. Am I drying my brush on my pants, or do you have a towel under the table? Pants all the way, Mr. Scott G. That's why I'm wearing expendable pants. And they really are. They're like my paint department pants. So they already have paint all over them, and it really doesn't matter. What I do actually, if you watch, you can't really see from that position. But what I do after I rinse my brush is I actually squeeze it out with my hand. It's kind of a reflexive thing that I do. So it's like rinse on the pants, but then I squeeze the rest of the liquid out here. And that also lets me kind of repoint the brush in my hand. So that's kind of the habit that I've gotten into because I'm not a brush licker. Yeah, allergies are rough, Cajun Mage. No joke. Big time. All right, let me see. I'm just going to make sure that I didn't miss any questions. I didn't. Good. Yay. But yeah, drying retarders, they tend to make the paint goopier and they tend to make it adhere less well, guys. So be careful when you use drying retarders. It's okay to use them if you want a wet blend to give you a little extra working time. If you have to work on a big broad area that really doesn't have any good stopping point, that might be a good area, a good time to use drying retarders. But usually if I'm wet blending, I'm trying to break up the surface into sections. And that way, I heard a happy. Fry Rick, you figured it out! Yay! Or Fry Eric. I'm not sure if it's Fry Eric or Fry Rick. Or maybe it's both. My long tradition of butchering names will continue. And I was in the middle of something. Oh yeah. So, if you break up your work, your wet blending work, into panels, like here with this wing, I'm doing each panel separately. Or when I use it on things like the dragon, look, I attached his tail, guys, so I have something else to hold on to. When I was doing wet blending here on the dragon, on his side and on his legs, I was just working in this section first and then this section next, you know, things like that. I was breaking it up into sections. And when you're doing that and you have a larger brush, you won't really experience your paint. Fry Eric. Got it. Thank you. You won't really experience your paint drying too fast at that point. Unless you live in, like, maybe if you live in a really brutal climate, like high desert or Arizona or, you know, someplace where it's really, really not humid. Then it might be difficult. Then you might want to try just a little bit of retarder. But be careful with that retarder. Make sure you add only a tiny bit. Kind of experiment with it. Because the more you add in, the less your paint is going to want to stick to the model when it's dry. Because retarders really do interfere with the way that resins latch onto the model. Wing! Back to wing. Kleenex. Woohoo! Link wasn't easy on iPhone, but worked great on computer. Yay! Good deal. All right. Yeah, allergies, just brutal. All right. So I want this to be a little bit lighter. If you recall on Mr. Dragon, what we did is we actually highlighted the purple almost up to white. You can see here at the center. And then we put our green wash over it. So I haven't gone high enough on this wing yet. So I'm going to grab my purple and I'm going to bring it in real strong. And I'm going to add white and see if I can just bring it up toward the top here. Oh, and I probably could use a little bit of water on it at this point to kind of get it in. And this is just me using water to kind of blend in this color and see if I can make it work. I may need to introduce some black to make it work because I've interrupted my wet blend here, so I may need to wet blend that. And I've used a lot of water, so you can see it's harder to control. So I'm going to actually take some of that off. You can see me mess up. That's the great thing about Twitch. You can see Anne not only paint, but mess up. It's the best part. And you can see how I really don't sweat it when I mess up. I just paint over it. Because, you know, why not? We use acrylics. That's what they're great for. No sweat. No mess. No, well, okay, some mess. Really no fuss. Let's see here. I'm going to really try to get a bright highlight at the top. There's a little bit of texture on these wings too, so I'm kind of working around that. Let's see here. Yeah, we'll see. That's not really realistic. It's more of a stylistic choice. I want to see how this works. By realistic versus stylistic choice, I mean, in reality, if this wing is catching the light, it's probably going to catch the light more here instead of here. But I want to see how it looks to put that highlight right at the top of the wing. So I'm going to do that. And actually, I'll do this one the other way. So on a rounded surface, usually you're going to get a highlight more like right here. So let's play with that on this part. And I'm only using 2 colors to wet blend. That's another secret you should keep in mind. Like, I'm really just hitting black with this purple. And then if I need to highlight, I just use white. So that means that you don't get any like weird color variations. You're always working with 2 things to set it up, and then you're adding just the white. So it's a little bit easier to keep your colors looking the same, even though you're technically blending every different highlight.
Oh, look, Rhonda's here.
Rhonda's here, only a little late. Hi, Rhonda. I'm suffering desperately from allergies, but I'm here, and I haven't seen if you answered my email about top secret color choices yet. We're going to tease them with all that. Rhonda is helping me figure out colors for, you know, maybe new colors to go into some supposed Kickstarter product that may be, you know, happening. Event. I guess it's not a product, it's an event. But it's an event with products, darn it. Because Rhonda is a color expert and also writes our Learn to Paint kits, which are brilliant. So, let me see here. The mess-ups are super helpful to watch. Well, thank you, Cajun Mage. Yeah. You made it, Sigwolf. Yay! What's the difference between Reaper's paint versus high-density pigment? So, like MSP Core versus HD, Everlina? So what happened is that essentially when HD came out, and the Bones paints continue this, by the way. Hold on, I had to work fast here because I'm about to strip up my paint. Okay, we'll just work with that. We'll set it up. We can always tune it after we block in our wet blend, right? Okay. This is turning into a wet blend tutorial, but that's all right. I don't mind it. So there's our 2, like, kind of, and actually I didn't go as high here as I wanted to. But here we're trying with an experiment toward the top of the wing membrane, and here we're going to have more of a highlight here. 1 minute while I blow my nose. All right. All right, here we go. All right, so what happened is when I did MSP Core, we had a defined set of pigments and paints that Reaper was already using, products essentially. I did a lot of R&D for that, and so we were using a set number of products. And then we actually had stuff canceled on us, Everlina. So essentially we lost our existing red, yellow, and blue bases. And when we went to reformulate those, I was made aware of something called high-density pigment. So we decided to give it a go for the HD line. And to see if we could rework some of our existing colors partially with it. So the HD line was formulated utilizing all of everything I could get out of high-density pigment. High-density pigments are essentially just a pigment. The best way to describe it is it's kind of, I'm glad you like the wet blend tutorial, non-zero value. The best way to describe high-density pigment is that it's like, normally pigment's coverage is based around how big the particles are, how big the pigment grind particles are. Pigments with a larger particle size in their pigment grind cover better, and those that don't cover less well. And of course, the bright primary colors and secondaries are some of the most least coverage colors, right? You know, it's hard to get a bright red that covers and a bright yellow, all that sort of thing. And blue tends to be somewhat transparent, you know, that sort of thing. 1 second. What high-density pigment does is it kind of clumps pigment particles together to give you the color, but still to block a little bit more light. And obviously you can't clump too much, or you're going to get such a big clump that you're going to start to actually see it. You know, it's that myth. Everybody always would see particles in their paint, and they'd say, oh, the pigment grind is too coarse. That's not actually what's happening. The particles you're seeing are from something entirely different. But if too much pigment clumping happens, then you do get that. And you can actually get an action called, in chemistry, you get a precipitate, where everything turns kind of cottage cheesy if you do paint wrong. It's just something that happens. So yeah, I believe that what they're doing is just putting in a binder that makes the pigment particles glob together to be slightly larger so you get slightly better coverage, thus high density. So that's high density pigment. Now the downside to high density pigment is, let me just actually go back to highlighting this wing while I talk to you guys. Let's be efficient. Let's do 2 things at once. We're good, right? We can do humans. We can multitask. Although I hear that multitasking is actually a myth and that, you know, it doesn't actually let you do 2 things at once. But I'm going to argue that here on stream it actually does. But anyway, high density pigment. The downside is that then you lose transparency. So when you want to do a wash or a glaze or something that requires a paint that's more see-through, you've sacrificed a little bit of that in the name of coverage. So that's why it's not necessarily something I want for every color. I'm just going to block in a really bright white here and then kind of try to blend it out. And I may fail, in which case we'll reblend this. But really with wet blending, as long as your underlying layer is already dry, you're fine. You really don't need to worry about it. Yeah, I need more paint. Okay, so see how scratchy this is? Because I don't have enough paint. Remember how I said put a whole bunch of paint on there at the beginning? So essentially, as I was trying to just spot hit that, I lost a bunch of it. So I'm going to really see how thick this paint is. So essentially, I'm going to paint over this spot. And this time, I'm going to keep in mind, I need this area to be much lighter. So right away, I'll coat it, and this is where it's nice that I'm only working with, remember, 2 colors. So I can repaint this and blend it into what I've already got back here pretty easily. All right, so now I've got this nice, slick, shiny, thick paint. Now I can work with it. A little bit of white. And the problem with wet blending is that, of course, that you never get your absolute bright or your absolute dark, right? As I work this white in, it fades into the rest of the blend. So I really have to remember, well, it's probably going to dry a little darker because that's what acrylic paints tend to do. So if I really want this white to show up, then I need to make it brighter than I would instinctually. So let me blend this tail. And this is where I have to move fast because everything wants to dry faster. But I want a brighter highlight here. So I'm going to try to muck it up and get that. And I can rinse out my brush real quick. Okay, Everlina, good deal. Yeah, oh, and I should mention that the Bones colors are formulated for higher coverage, so they do utilize a lot of HD bases and pigments. I talk about this, I don't talk about it a lot, and I don't have a much time on camera here at Reaper, but I actually go into this quite a bit on my Patreon. So I will still share here because I don't want to make it, sound like you guys have to go to my Patreon to get stuff. But if you have the time and you want to try it out, I do have an awful lot of information about this sort of thing on there because I actually have time to do it on my own time. So in fact, I just did a color wheel using MSP paints for my Patreon. I'm going to post that up actually later today when I get home, and kind of talked about, why it's easy and why it's hard to build a color wheel with MSP. And I tried not to mix any more than I had to, so it was kind of a fun experiment. I might do more things like that for my Patreon. It's kind of a good thing. But yeah, I've always wanted to go in depth on this sort of thing, and so that's what the Patreon kind of lets me do. I'm like, now I have an excuse to spend my spare time talking about Master Series paint. So, and I do painting stuff on there too, of course. It's not all just paint chemistry. But even then, even in a lot of my tutorials, I talk about the paint, why it works the way it does. Because that is a good education for you guys, I think. It always helps to know the why behind something. I hate tutorials that just tell you to do something and they don't tell you why it works. So I prefer to do it the other way. You sign up for Patreon and get links to the videos. If you go to Patreon and you get an account, you can essentially search for me, which is Painting Big, all one word, because I tend to paint bigger stuff on there. And then you can, once you find me, you can subscribe. And then, depending on the level you subscribe, it'll automatically show you the posts that you get access to. So if you only want to give me $2, then you get access to all those $2 posts. The $5 level is color theory and a whole bunch of PDFs on color in general. Sometimes I do a video if there's some subject that works that way. And it goes up from there. So it's up to you. I'm actually going to do a public post pretty soon so you guys can kind of see how my videos are without subscribing. I've been wanting to do that for a while, but I don't want to take content that exists and make it public because that's, I gave that to my patrons. So yeah, I'm just trying to find time. I was actually going to do an eyeballs video. All right, so now we're looking pretty good. So I always have trouble figuring out where I'm supposed to put the wing. There we go. Aha! All right, so see what we've got here. We've got highlight at top of wing, highlight more, and what this does is, because I made the highlight more rounded, is it defines kind of the volume of the wing a little bit better. So it's more of a naturalistic highlight. This is definitely stylistic highlight. I want to put some emphasis on each of these membranes, so I'm going to highlight really sharp up against the highlight of the membrane above it. So all different ways to kind of deal with highlights, right? Are we allowed to share our painting Instagram handles? Yeah, why not? And Rhonda says, speaking of awesome Reaper paints, late to the stream because you were taking pictures of the Pathfinder preview paints. Yay! Yeah, definitely do. Definitely swatch those suckers out.
Grim had a question there, too.
Cool. The split complementary. Yes, Casmania. Well, split complementary is, I mean, you can do it with this wheel. I made it more than a 6-color wheel. How about that? And then I tell you how to use it to find your complementaries. Yeah, and I guess if split complementary means that it has a orangish yellow and a greenish yellow in addition to the regular yellow, yes, it is. So hopefully that works. Max Power is cute. I actually have 2 understudies right now in the mixing department. They're actually taking care of stuff while I am here. So, oh yeah. Oh good. Trying to get the hang of wet blending. Good deal, Arcane Void. I'm glad. Hey, I think my allergy pill might be kicking in finally. All right, awesome. That makes me excited. Here, I'm going to mix up our olive green and see if I can totally screw up everything we've done.
Miss Ann, did you answer Grim's question by chance?
Which one?
Grim 444.
444. Which one?
They ask if when you sign up for Patreon, do you get links to the videos, or
I
assume they're
I
embedded.
did. I did. If you go to Patreon and you find me painting big,
Right.
And then you essentially sub to me, you automatically will see, once you sub, you'll see all the posts you have access to. You can just click on the post and go to it and download the video or download the PDF as it is.
So they're basically embedded then.
Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's all, it's kind of like a blog with hidden content. So, like, when you first see it, you might not see much except for the intro and kind of my description of stuff. But once you are in, then you'll see the recent posts, and and anything you can see is content you can access.
Awesome.
And in my case, you'll also see posts that you don't have access to yet, because I teaser you, because I like that. So you'll see also the subjects that I've covered for the higher tiers, and that lets you kind of decide maybe what tier you want to sub at. Yay! So all right, back to putting green over this now to see if it works. I'm making a very, very thin glaze of swamp green, 9175. I guess I didn't reiterate what I was using here. I was using Runic Purple 9424 as the purple for these. The white right now is 9439 Dragon White. Any of our whites will do. And the black is straight up pure black 9037. So we've got this. I'm trying to, let's see here. I'm trying to get my green really thin. Let me see if I can get this on camera. There we go. There we are. Haha. So you see how thin this is. It's water. Glazing is heavier than washing. With washing, you want the paint to still hold together when you apply a wash. So if you thin it too much, you break the resins that hold the paint in solution, essentially. And that's why if you thin your paint too much for a wash, it dries in rings. It doesn't stay in the cracks like you want it to. There's ways around that. You can add matte medium, or you can add Reaper Brush on sealer to your wash to make sure that it stays all in solution. The sealer essentially puts some more base in there to bind the resins together. Puts extra resins in there, I guess you could call it. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, you guys are just chatting about visiting us? Yes, come visit us. It's awesome. I have Dark Sword. You have the Dark Sword DVD memorized at this point. That was years ago. I know so much more now, Grim. I know so much more. All right, so here we go. So we're back to this and how thin it is and why it's so awesome. So some people use glaze medium because they don't want to have that horrible effect, that ringing effect with their glazes. But I find that if you apply it quickly and very thin and don't allow it to pool, you don't get that problem. So I personally don't use glaze medium. I just go super fast. Physical shop. Oh, yeah. Arcane Void. This is the factory. This is the HQ. Does Reaper Wash medium help with that? Yes. Thanks. Yeah, I lost a lot of weight, Grim, didn't I, from that Dark Sword video? A lot of weight. Like, it has to be like 80 pounds at that point. I'm trying to remember how overweight I was at that one. But a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and now I'm much thinner and much healthier. So yes, thank you. Reaper Wash Medium does help with that. Essentially what Reaper Wash Medium is people wanted us to just create a ready-to-use out-of-the-bottle version of the brush-on sealer mix that we were recommending for washes. So we used to just say, well, use 3 drops brush on sealer, 3 drops water, and a drop of paint, and that's great, and maybe some extra flow improver, you know, stuff like that. But people are like, well, just give us a wash medium. So yes, you can use the brush on sealer and add water, or you can just use the wash medium, and you don't have to add additional water or flow improver or any of that stuff. It works. So it really depends kind of if you want your wash a little bit thicker to hold together just a little bit more maybe, then use the straight up brush on sealer. And if you want it more thin off the gate, then yeah, just work with it with the wash medium. You can experiment with both and see which one you like. That's the best recommendation for anything in miniature painting. All right, I've got my glaze, which is really, really thin. You can see it's like colored water off of here. And we're just gonna slobber it on. I'm gonna use my biggest brush. The key to glazing is to use a brush that is large as the area that you're covering, right? You want it to cover at least half of the area, or maybe, you know, this is a little bit short of a half, but you get the idea. I can cover this entire area very quickly with this brush full of glaze, and you can see how fat my brush is here. It's not coming to a point because I've loaded it up with so much liquid. How many do we typically put in a competition? How many hours? I will get to that in a second. Let me glaze. So yeah, lots of paint on your brush, and you're just gonna slide it on and hit the whole area. And right away, rinse your brush and dry it off a little bit and wick off any excess fluid you see pooling. You want to take off usually it's near the cracks, so you don't even have to touch. You don't want to touch this broad surface if you can, unless you absolutely have to, and then just try to touch it really quick, like when you first put on the paint. Because while it's still really wet, you're not at risk of really ripping up paint. It's still pretty wet, so I'm going to kind of dab. I still try to keep toward the edges, though. Once it starts to dry, oh, I missed a spot. There we go. Once it starts to dry, you want to leave it, especially if you are glazing light, because, yay, brush on sealer. Yeah, try the wash medium. Give it a try, see if you like our premix. I mean, that's really it, right? If you like the premix, then it cuts out a little bit of work and measuring for you. All right, so that's kind of cool. That's actually giving us a greenish cast here in the middle, interestingly enough. And it did bring down our purple a little bit. Now, the reason I thin this so much, guys, and I've said this before, and I will say it again, and I will say it every time I glaze, always make your glazes a little thinner rather than a little thicker, because you can always add more. You can always do another layer, but if you put it on too thick, then you're going to have to repaint everything. So better to go thin with your glazing when you're trying to tint a color than to go thick with it. All right, how many hours does it take me to paint in a competition level paint job? Rainbow Sculptor. Wow, that has varied a lot down through my career. The first competition level mini I ever did for Golden Demons, which actually I won a Golden Demon with, was a 40-hour paint job on a standard 28mm Space Marine Commander for Chaos Space Marine Commander, I should say, for Alpha Legion. And that 40 hours to 45 hours is probably a good baseline for how long it takes me to do a competition piece at that scale. When you start talking bigger, then it varies a lot. I don't know if you've seen my Soldier 76 statue. I have an Overwatch statue that I painted for ReaperCon last year. He is about a foot tall, not a joke, is actually 12 inches tall. And I did very much fine texture on him, and I think 140 hours for that one. I think for a bust, you're looking at between 40 and 75, depending if there's conversion work and how elaborate the bust is and how big the bust is. So anywhere from 40 up to 140 at this point. I did a dragon once up to that standard, and it was at 120 just for the dragon without the rider, and I think I stopped counting beyond that. And that was a while ago, though. I might be able to do it faster now. Is there a photo online somewhere of that Soldier 76? Non-zero value, go to paintingbig. I think I'm .net. Can you do that, Justin? Can you go and see?
I will
but
check
my
it
website is very small right now. But I did want to put my competition pieces up. I think it's paintingbig.net.
Okay,
I don't think it's .com. There I am. Yay! And if you click on the model, you should be able to enlarge the photo, or it should does it? There we go. And did you put it in there? Yay!
Yes, I did.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. And if you click on any of those photos on the front page, they'll go to a bigger version.
These aren't the pictures I took, are they?
No, I
Okay.
took those at home with my light gray backdrop. Yours is. Used yours for the Blizz competition.
Correct.
Yeah, but I found that when I put it on the business card, the light gray background worked better. So yeah, you can see some of the stuff on there that I painted in the last year, pretty much. And then of course I've done stuff for Dark Sword. Yeah, Graham, T-Rock is huge. That is going to seriously. Yeah, I would say that when you first start, if you haven't really pushed to competition level before, if you look at how long it's taking you to paint a standard mini, assume it's going to double to triple that. So if you take like 10 to 12 to just do a pretty good, solid upper level tabletop on something, then you're probably looking at 20 to 30 for a competition piece when you first start pushing. Part of it is just how fast you master the techniques that you're looking at. If you're trying new techniques, 1 second here. Yeah, photographing minis is super hard, Rainbow Sculptor. I have had 20 years practicing it, and I still screw up. All right, I'm going to try to glaze this upper wing. It looks like I'm going to have to mix some more glaze, too. My glaze got a little thicker, so this is a little stronger. We'll see if I screw it up. Because, we love to screw it up, because then we can fix it. And yes, Rhonda, I saw you. Yes, the glazing mantra. Yes, it is. And while it's wet, I can kind of wick off some of this extra. Just kind of drag it down sometimes into the cracks works too. That way you can wick it off easier. This looks pretty even though. I think I got a pretty even coat on that. A little bit of extras up here. So you see that makes it a lot less purple. I'm going to mix up more of that. There we go. There we go. So we lost a lot of the green here. I can see it in person. I can see it more on the upper parts. One thing you can do if you're feeling confident, if you wanted a little stronger green and you know exactly where you want it, is you can just choose to paint that green, like if you wanted in the highlight, say. You can just paint that over it, rinse out your brush, squeeze most of the water out, and that's kind of push that up against the edge that you just painted. And what that does is that what they call feathering that edge in to make it blend. It also makes sure that this stays purple because I kind of put clean water through it when that went greener anyway. So interesting effects so far. Not quite as awesome as the scale effect that we got here. I probably went heavier with that color. Although this is close in color. Like the dragon matches at this point. It's not. I'm not gonna be too sad. But I definitely got stronger green color on the dragon here than I got green up here. I'm getting a lot more purple showing through up here, and it could just be. Yeah, Silverthorn cats are like that. Is the leather crackle on the back of the jacket sculpted? No, it's my paint job, Grim. That's why it took 140 hours. All the crackly leather all over the place is all freehand. Every texture that you see on that sucker is freehand. The model, that's the collector's edition statue, so it comes black with a bronze dry brush on it. So everything you see on that baby is paintwork. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a labor of love. I love Overwatch. I'm addicted to it. I finally talked my boyfriend into playing it with me last week. So now hopefully he'll get addicted to it, and I'll have somebody to play with finally. Here we go. Yeah, and we are getting a stronger green here, see, because I glazed that over it. But we also lost our highlight a little bit. So what I'm wondering is, what about if I add a little bit of white to that green and thin it down and just try to put a layered highlight in? Because this is something we can do, right? We kind of set this up really fast. And since we did set it up pretty fast, now we can use more traditional like layering techniques to reintroduce a little bit of a highlight here that's greenish in nature if we want to. A bunch of us also play Overwatch. Yeah, we need a Reaper gaming server. Like, we do. Seriously.
Since it does often come up in this channel.
Yes, because we do talk about it.
We super secretly decided yesterday, and this is kind of the insider for you guys here, that we might put together an official Discord.
Ooh, yes, that'd be awesome. Then we can all get together and find out if anybody wants to play Overwatch with us tonight, or whatever you want to play.
There you go. But we are pursuing it. Let's put it that way.
Yay! That makes me happy. Yay! Yes, I will say that I'm not very good at Overwatch, and I tend to be a Mercy one trick, but other than that, if you can deal with that horrible stigma, I do love to play. I love the game, and I watch Overwatch League all the time. There we go. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm layering in like a swamp green plus white highlight there, just to kind of give us a little variation of color to get more of my green in there. And I don't think I'm quite green enough still, weirdly. And this is where we just experiment, where I'm like, an effect that was easy to get on the body of the dragon is proving not as easy to get on the rest of the dragon on this big, broad surface. Yeah, Max Powers, I'm not sure if Justin is going to be taking applications for moderators or what, but...
There was some talk of maybe having the community, it being sanctioned by us, but the community basically being the ones to police it.
That would be
and
great.
run it.
I think that would be great.
Just because...
we have a
as
good
you imagine,
community.
yeah, there's a lot of people around
We have a very
here.
reliable community.
We have a lot of people that are doing a lot of jobs, so we were
Right.
trying to figure out who was going to organize it and
Right.
all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Because most of us are too darn busy. I'm just putting a little extra purple in here just to see if I can get more of that opalescent effect. And I'm kind of ghetto layering here, for lack of a better term. Mercy for the win. Yay, Mr. Scott G. That's right. I'm playing a little bit with Baptiste now, and I really like him. I kind of like his style. I might try to work more with him. But yeah, what do you... I don't want to bring up... I really don't want to talk Overwatch like on stream, but I'm kind of tempted to talk Overwatch on stream. But it excludes people who don't play Overwatch. So I'll shut my mouth. And maybe we just need a... Is there a gaming forum on Reaper Miniatures website forum? Do we have a...
Are you
or would it be off
me?
topic?
Because I have no idea.
Yeah. I guess I don't know if people on Twitch even go to our forums. Maybe we should mention our forums.
There's links on our forums to both this show and Reaper Live.
So I'm
and
putting
our
more
Twitch.
green up here, guys. You see I'm layering it in, just kind of using... And this is an example, by the way, of you can use a gigantic brush for layering as long as it has a really good point. And the tip on this one is pretty good when I tighten it up. It's not bad. This is a Da Vinci Maestro Series 11. So it's a full-bodied round. So it's not the best layering brush because it's quite fat. You kind of have to watch how much paint you're loading up on it. You want to make sure you have very little paint on it to get a good layer. There we go. Let's see. Should assign a few managers for Discord to talk to others about topics. Oh, hi there, Cleo. It's nice to meet you. Welcome. We are painting a dragon wing and talking about computer games and talking about our new Discord that we want to launch for people to talk and organize like online gaming with each other for, you know, our Reaper fans. Max, let us talk about it first. The bosses don't like it when somebody just runs in out of nowhere and wants to create something for us. So let the bosses figure out how they want to launch it. And then we know now that you're interested in helping us with it. So Justin can just make a note of your name, and we'll pass it on.
Absolutely. In fact, if you could send me an email, Max Powers, send me an email to reaperlive@reapermini.com.
There you go.
With your interest, and we will keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think it's just non-topic Silverthorn. Yeah, you do not want Ed's Wrath. Nobody wants Ed's Wrath. All right, so actually, if you look at the wing, guys, now we're getting it. Like, since I went in and I thinned down some swamp green, and I added some white to it, now we're getting a little bit of this opalescent stuff, because I manually added my olivey highlights. So we're getting that little bit of that green to purple color transition that I want, that we got by accident and liked over here. So what I do have to do is I do have to bring in a brighter highlight to get that shininess of the wing. So that's going to be kind of titchy. I have to get my white really thinned down. I'm going to be using green for that, I think, at least at the start. A little bit of green mixed into my white, mostly pure white, or dragon white in this case. Awesome. Thanks, Max. We love people who take initiative. Reaper's just a bunch of alpha people, all alpha commanders. We all like to be in charge of things, but that's the problem is that we're all in charge of too many things. It works until it doesn't work. There we go. All right, so yeah, we could do an off-topic Ramsey Overwatch or whatever game. Yeah, I was gonna ask what you guys felt about the 2-2-2 roll lock, but you know, let's just be nice. Let's just be good. Let's talk about painting. That's what I'm here for. Let me get some green. I want to kind of blend this in a little bit up here. I'm being real loose with it. I probably should switch to a smaller brush, but part of me perversely wants to just play and see if I can do this with the big brush. It does have a pretty good tip, so, because it is a DaVinci after all. Probably a DaVinci Series 10 would be a little better because they're a little bit narrower. I wonder if I have one. Let me see. I've got a Raphael. Don't have a real big DaVinci. I do have a size 0 of the 11. That's a little bit smaller than this too. I think I'll grab that. Sorry for the sniffly noises. Allergies still acting up, but not nearly as bad as they were earlier. Okay, so are you using a wet palette? No, I use a well palette for everything because I'm a control freak. So I'm going to go over that real quick because I actually went over it once, but I want this to get ingrained in people's brains. And so here we go. Let me grab a fat brush and a skinny brush. So that's kind of a skinny brush. Do I have one of my DaVinci? Yeah, there we go. All right, so here's the dealio. When you use a wet palette, you're usually using thicker paints, and because of that, it makes more sense, let me get this, for you to use a thicker brush. Because if you're using a thicker brush, the paint is going to stay wet longer because you're holding more paint in there when you're using a big fat brush like this. So it makes sense when you're using a wet palette to use a big fat brush. But when you come, so actually I could have, since I was using a big fat brush, I could have used a wet palette for this wet blending. In fact, it would work really well. However, when you want to layer, you usually want a thinner brush because if you have a big fat brush when you're trying to layer, it's what I was talking about with this earlier. You have to make sure that you've got very little paint on this big fat brush or it's going to go everywhere. So when you're working with layering where you've got thinner paint, it makes more sense to use a skinny brush like my DaVinci Maestro Series 10 here, or this Raphael, which is the bigger one. But you see how thin the brush is? It's not really fat, right? The Raphael is a little bit fat further up toward the ferrule, but even so, not too bad. It's mostly very narrow. Now, a narrow brush is not good for thick paint because obviously it's going to dry on there really fast because you don't have many hairs there to hold it. But when you're using really thin paint, like I do for layering, then it's great because this brush holds just a little paint so it doesn't like overflow and go, you can keep control of it a little bit better. And because it's thin, it's going to stay wet in this brush for a nice long time. So what essentially is what I've found is that thick paint, wet palette, thick brush, and well palette, thin paint, thin brush is really the best way to work for me. And it's essentially physics. It's, paint consistency and surface tension and all the rest of it also. Thin paint will come off of this thin brush really easily, but if I try to use thick paint on this thin brush, it isn't going to want to come off very easily. It's much better if it has a big thick brush to apply. Oh, we got Mubot. Okay. DaVinci for your fat brush and Rosemary for your thins. I have yet to try Rosemary. I keep getting people telling me I need to try Rosemary. But I've been such a DaVinci girl for so dang long. I need somebody to just throw a Rosemary at me and hit me in the head and say, damn it, try it. Eventually I will. My boyfriend uses a lot of Rosemary, so I'm sure that eventually it will seep over. But actually, if you've got a recommendation for the exact series, Grim, what series, like, the number series? Because they've got so many different types of brushes, and I've like series 33, series 22, And so series and size, if you can make a recommendation for a thinner brush with the Rosemaries, I'll be glad to make a note of that and actually try to pick one up. Ah, yeah, Jessica's. Yeah, Rosemaries are nice because they're a little bit cheaper. Somebody chasing me around with a potted herb. I do really like herbs, so, if somebody chased me around with a rosemary, I probably would just try to get it and put it on my windowsill with my other potted herbs, because I don't have a rosemary yet. So I'm just going to try to kind of bring a white highlight right up here, up against the top of the wing to sharpen that up. Right now, that's more of a line than anything, so I'm going to grab some green and blend it in. Kind of using a sideways stroke on this, just because. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't really like how that's, I really think I need to, I like this better. I like this wing better than the top edge thing. The top edge thing gives you a really sharp effect, but I think overall, I like up here a little bit better. Yeah, Cleo, hopefully that gives you some mileage. I mean, there's a lot of people out there recommending wet palettes, and most of them, if you look at them, most of them are using bigger brushes, and they're recommending them, they're recommending both a bigger brush and they use a wet palette. But I don't know that those people have really looked at why they're doing that, right? They're just like, well, this works. And it's like, well, it works because of, physics and surface tension and, how paint acts when it's thinned down and how easy it is to control at various consistencies with a thick or a thin brush. So I like to kind of expose that sort of thing when I can figure it out. I recently took a class with Sergio when he was in the country. He's a Spanish painter, and he uses a big thick brush and a wet palette. And so I made myself, even though I'm a well palette painter, I made myself use a thick brush and a wet palette in his class. And that's when I flashed onto this and realized, oh, this is why these guys all recommend, wet palettes and thick brushes, is because this is how the paint works when you use a wet palette. And when it is thicker, you need a thicker brush. So, yeah. It's just figuring out the whys. I love figuring out the whys. Why does this work? Why is this a thing? Am I hyped for ReaperCon yet? I am just starting to get hyped for ReaperCon, Rainbow Sculptor. Or our living in super dry climates. That's true, Silverthorn. I'm going to just get my Kleenex here. 1 second, guys. There we go. Sorry about that. The allergies are mostly under control, but I'm having moments. All right, there. I kind of like that. Yeah, I kind of like the upper wing best. This is when we kind of like trial and see which wing do we like best. I think I'm going to repaint this wing. So those of you who came in late can get another lesson in wet blending. Need to use No, actually, okay. So here's why wet palettes will really screw you up on your layering, everybody. Series 33 are thin brush, Series 8 have a deeper well, Series 22 have a sharper point. Got it. So 22 and 33 probably are good ones for me to get. What size do you use, Kaz? Grim, yeah. Well, that makes sense. If your brush wear follows mine, then yeah, your brushes are going to age by getting thinner. But you know what, Grim? We have an advantage. I see. 33, and Grim, you also gave me Series 33 Rosemary, 10-aught, 5-aught. Usually I like a little bit bigger, probably 5-aught to 3-aught would be probably what I'll try. Thank you. Thank you both. And you like it too, Kaz. Okay, that's good to know. So a whole range of what you guys like to use, which is good. Everybody paints differently. But yeah, Grim, we apparently have a horrible advantage, the fact that our brushes become thinner and stay useful as they age. Everybody is madly jealous, so... All right, wet blending tutorial, take 2. Put on thick paint very thickly. Da-da-da. Cover over all the stuff we've decided we do not like. Take second color. Try to work with only 2 colors. If you work with 3, then you're going to have areas where there's an imbalance of color, and it will frustrate the heck out of you when you go to try to duplicate it or blend something in. Oh, then if you're me, discover that you do not have enough runic purple left, and quickly shake it and apply it to your palette and try to beat the drying thing. Yeah, ceramic well palettes are where it is at. I get mine from Cheap Joe's. This one with lots of tiny wells is so awesome because you can keep your surface tension or your surface area exposed to air smaller, so your paint stays wet at the consistency you want it for longer. But yeah. So wet palettes are bad for layering because when you are trying to layer, you want your paint to stay at a very specific consistency for a long time. And the wet palette is going to be absolutely evil and keep you from doing this because its job is to wick moisture back and forth between the paper and the sponge. So it doesn't just work for you because, it goes both ways. So when you think you've got a thinner paint mixture, because you have to go thin with layering, and you think you've got it right on your wet palette, and you happily go to apply it, while you do that, your wet palette goes, oh, we've got too much moisture up top. I think I'll suck some of that down into the sponge. And so your perfect paint consistency is ruined. You are frustrated when you go back to reload your brush and your paint doesn't work the way you want it to. And this is why it is hard, not impossible, but harder to layer using a wet palette and then a well palette. So try, if you would, give it a try on the well palette for layering, because there you can build a big paint puddle and keep it at exactly the consistency you need. Once you have it dialed in, it stays that way for, you know, an hour or so or more, depending on if you continue adding water as the evaporation happens slowly. But you will generally experience less frustration if you try to layer with a well palette. Both palettes are useful. I have both, but I tend to default to my well because I know that I can get exactly the consistency I want and the paint will stay there. If you're in a very dry climate, then you'll have a bit more challenge with that. But DaVinci Restoro, yeah, I do love DaVinci. Yeah, Bird. I think only on Cheap Joe's is when I've seen it. On Amazon, you can get. They sometimes have kind of off-brand ones, but they're not as good as the Cheap Joe's ones. So Cheap Joe's Art Supplies, just Google it, and porcelain palette. You specifically want a porcelain one. If it says anything else, don't trust it, because I had somebody order a look-alike palette, I think off of Amazon, and it was not porcelain. It was just plastic with a really shiny coating. Let's see here. Yeah, ceramic. So yeah, porcelain palettes are the way to go. They are super awesome because they're so easy to clean. Just throw them in a sink with some hot water or some simple green and hot water and let them soak for a couple minutes, and it comes right up. Yes.
This question here.
Which question? Rinse cycle may be responsible for how my brush... Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So, all right. So, apparently, I rinse really, really frequently. Like, incredibly frequently. I am always rinsing. Not so much with my big, huge fat brush here, as you're noticing. That's because I'm trying to, like, not... When I wet blend, I actually don't rinse my brush as often. That's part of... I like to keep that layer of paint on the brush so I don't strip up paint when I reapply. But normally, when I am layering, I rinse a lot. Like, honestly, I apply a layer and I rinse my brush and reload. It happens. It happens all the time. So the postulation is that I am essentially thinning my brush because I rinse so often that I lose hairs faster than I blunt the tip. So I never experience a blunt-tipped brush, essentially. My brushes never lose the point. Instead, they just get super, super thin. And actually, that's brilliant because I can do things fine detail-wise with those ultra-thin brushes that I can't do with anything else. Usually, it's my DaVinci Maestro Series 10 size ones that's happening with. But yeah, so I kind of asked people about their brush wear the other day, and that's how we got to that. But yeah, for me, there's definitely a brush break-in period also, which is probably what I'm looking for, is essentially I brutalize my brush until it gets a little skinnier, and then it's awesome. I hate to say that. Do not model yourselves after me for brush care. Really, don't, guys. Although, I have to say, my brushes still last fairly long. It all depends on how much I'm painting. I'm just continually... You can see I can wet blend this till the cows come home, right? I'm just my paint is getting thicker and thicker, and there will come a point when I want to stop. I'm essentially trying to I think I might layer on my last highlight there, so I'm going to let that purple dry. Paint supplies. Oh, yeah, Games Workshop uses paint pots so that your stuff dries out faster, so you have to buy more of it. That's actually a marketing tactic. Can you mute me, Justin, so that people don't have to listen to me blow my nose? There we go. You guys don't have to listen to me be allergy full. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, Citadel, I mean, their paint isn't bad, but it needs to be thinner. It needs to flow better. You know, it's made for a specific... What Citadel does well is it's paint that's made for a specific purpose, and it's just that. Very good at that purpose, right? Gaming, painting. Quick painting, speed painting gaming models, and it works okay. And some of their specialty stuff is fun. And they do great washes because they've got what we don't have. They've got, like, a paint company that is just dedicated to playing around and doing what they You actually didn't think about that? Arcane Void, you can get around it. The sneaky way to get around it, I learned this when I actually worked for Games Workshop, is to store your paint pots upside down. That way, the seal around the part of the pot that opens is buried under liquid all the time, so it actually does not allow excess air to leach into your pot. So if you store your Games Workshop paints or your pot paints upside down, they will last a lot longer. So, colored glue crap, yeah. Citadel paint, yuck. I try to be extremely objective when I judge other companies' paints, Kaz. And so, I mean, although a lot of my responses are often like, well, you know, it's better if you mix it with Master Series. And I did experience that. I was like, you know, GW, this isn't a bad paint, but boy, if I mix it with a Master Series, it's much better. So that's very silly of me, I know, but it's true. I decided I would try to wet blend. Oh, okay, I'm starting to dry here. Yeah, if I can see my brush strokes that much, I'm on the scary edge of where I am in this. Trying to blend in this edge just a little bit before it starts to dry too much. Sometimes you just run out of time on your wet blend. And then you can either decide that you want to paint over it, or if you've got a good start on it, you can just decide to use layering to smooth out your blends. Because wet blending doesn't give you a perfect blend, it just gives you a good start. I mean, sometimes you can get it to a perfect blend, but that is a lot of futzing. And you can also do what I'm doing here. I took a damp brush, and I'm kind of feathering in this edge to try to get it to blend a little bit better. See how that's bringing it in a little bit? But even that only works a little bit. It doesn't work like perfectly all the time. There we go. So that's more like that. So now I'll try to bring in a green highlight on that. How long does Reaper paint last? A lot of it. Sitting unused, that's going to lower its lifespan, Dark Knight Azrath. Essentially, oh, guys, totally. Darth, I missed you. I missed what you said. Sorry about that. So, Reaper paint lasting in the bottle. If you shake it once a year or once every couple years, shake it, give it a good shaking. It can last for over a decade. But if it sits in a bottle for like 5 years and it's not moving, the resins can settle out and then you get a plug of paint. So if you just give everything a shake, you can really extend its life almost indefinitely. Because even after 10 years, when it's starting to thicken a little bit, you can add a little bit of water into the bottle, and then again, it'll be good for ages. If you shake it, I don't even know what its maximum lifespan is, because I have original bottles downstairs that are 14 years old and they're fine. Just because they get shaken at least once a year when if that color comes up for mixing. So yeah, a long time. Let's see here. Yeah, Silverthorn, shake it once a year, don't freeze it, it'll probably last to the end of time. Yeah, don't freeze it. That's the other thing. You can leave it in your car in the summer all you want. Heat does not affect paint, but freezing will destroy it. Yeah, Darth Trolin, sorry. I totally missed what your original question was. If you're still around, let us know. Otherwise, I'll try to be better about catching questions. I was trying to actually do enough painting so that I'm not boring the socks off you guys while we chat about stuff. My wet blend isn't quite good, but I kind of like the effect on the upper wing. So, well, let's see. Is it dry enough for me to layer? Well, it's telling me that my paint is too thick, that's for sure. So I need to load some water into it. When you can see brush strokes when you're layering, obviously it is too much. Oh, also I switched back to my fat brush. Need to switch to skinny brush. Yay! Well, that'll let the paint dry a little bit more. Sometimes I get impatient. Oh, good. Chatting and painting, all good. Yeah, I just don't want to miss anybody's question, Oh, and that might be too thin. When you can't even see the color when you lay it down, then you know your layering color is too thin. So then you got to add more paint. Just by touches. And this is what I'm talking about, by the way, when I'm saying you want to get everything really dialed in on when you're dealing with a well palette. You can really just dial it in. I just kind of experiment and I go back and forth until I get my paint to the perfect layering consistency. There we go. That's where it's at. A little bit more anyway. Maybe a tiny bit more thin. I want it to be almost invisible brush stroke it when I start the brush stroke, and I want it to end laying down more paint. This is maybe a little bit thicker. See, I'm starting to blend that green edge in right there. So maybe just a little bit thinner. But once I dial this in, once I've got it perfect, it's going to stay perfect for a little while. So I just have to reload my brush. I don't have to like do with the problem with wet palette painting when you're trying to do this is that you have to pretty much mix every brush full a little bit to tune it. And that means that if you don't mix it precisely right every time, you won't get a perfect blend with your layering, which is going to frustrate you. And nobody likes to be frustrated. We all want to love our hobby. So the less frustration that you have, the better. So I find it far better if I can just dial in where my layering needs to be, and then I don't have to think about it for a while, which is why I think the well palette is a little bit better for this. Yeah, I think my underlying paint layer is still a little bit wet, and so I'm getting streakiness. No, not streakiness. If you do find that you can see too many brush strokes with your layering, you can come at it, like I can load up my brush with this purple, and I can actually come at it from the opposite direction and try to blend in that edge to the green. And I can go a little bit deeper with the green after that, but it lets me kind of blend that in like that. So layering can go back and forth each way, essentially, is what you come down to. If you get too light too fast, you can come back with your midtone color and layer it from the opposite direction and blend it in. So I'm going to grab my green again because I really want this to be more green than purple. Let's see here. GW first paint, olive dried up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. What do we got? Oh, I haven't even tested it. Oh, okay. So we have 20 minutes left, more or less. Good. 2 different grades of Kolinsky sable. Yes, 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 yes. All right. There's so much stuff. I'm trying to catch up on your guys' questions. How many sizes do I use and recommend? Dr. Bob. All right. Okay. Wow. Probably my go-to, Dr. Bob, is what I'm using right now, which is the DaVinci Maestro Series 10 size 1. It is made in Germany. It is a very skinny brush, as you can see. I like this for layering. For wet blending and other stuff, I tend to use bigger brushes. I've used the Raphael 8408. Raphael 8408, which is this one, which has a sharp, it's fatter toward the ferrule, but it has a sharp taper and a fine point. And for big wet blending on the wing earlier, I was using a DaVinci Maestro Series 11 instead of a 10, which is a very big fat brush, but still comes to a decent point. All of these are grade 1 Kolinsky sables. Kolinsky does come in 2 grades. Both are good. If you haven't used a Kolinsky before, then feel free to get a slightly cheaper grade 2 Kolinsky sable. Don't worry about it, whether it's grade 1 or grade 2. It doesn't really matter. Because any awesome sable is probably going to up your game if you've never used one before, to be frank. Winsor Newton Series 7s are also very good. And usually when I use Winsor Newton Series 7, I liked their, it's the standard Series 7, not the miniature one. I don't like the miniature one, too broad. Usually a size 00 was what I liked. Silverthorn likes slightly bigger brushes. You're going to find that, Dr. Bob, and it really depends on what you're painting. Like, you might want to... Okay, you do have a DaVinci. Good, Silverthorn. Let me know what you think. So experiment, Dr. Bob, is what it comes down to. Figure out if you like a bigger brush or you like a smaller brush. Play around with both. What I found when I was trying to get much better at miniature painting is that I had always been using slightly larger brushes. I made myself switch to very small brushes to paint a figure. And what that made me do is it made me concentrate more on the details. I couldn't fudge things as much because I couldn't just cover a whole area with one brush stroke. So working with smaller brushes actually forced me to tighten my painting style because I had to paint everything with a tiny brush. And by tiny, I mean 0.10. But when you're painting a whole 75 millimeter figure with an 0.10, it's a lot. So that can be a useful technique. Likewise, if you find that you're a micromanaging painter who likes to use tiny brushes for everything, switch it up to a big brush and go big. See if you can do more, look at your highlights more broad, you know, from a macro perspective. One sec. Yep. Sorry, guys. Had allergy attack there. News at 10. When allergies attack. So yeah, so experiment with different brush sizes. Experiment with your style. Do you like a wet palette? Do you like a well palette? Try both. Just keep in mind that different brushes are built for different techniques, just as different palettes excel at different techniques. So if you find that you are really loving layering and you want to get those like really awesome blends, or maybe you want to do some micro texture work, you know, with cloth texture or leather texture, then well palettes and skinnier brushes are going to be kind of probably going to give you a slightly better experience. But if you like to do more impressionistic stuff and you like a lot of wet blending, or you like kind of just to go big, broad brushstrokes, to lay down your light and your shadow on a broad basis first and then get more detailed, then wet palette may really work for you. It's all about experimentation. When you start in painting, you don't really have a style yet, but ideally you experiment with everything, and you look at painters too. Look at like some of your favorite painters, and if you can, take classes with them, so that you can experience their style and see how you can, maybe you don't adapt their whole style, but maybe there are specific things they do that you do end up borrowing. So that's a great way to kind of figure out what you're doing too. Hi, Twisted Oma. Nice to meet you. I'm glad you made the live. I like the live. It's been pretty feisty today. You guys have been talking a lot. Like Justin and I haven't had a chat to keep things interesting. Not that that really is interesting, but you know. So did you guys like did you ask Ed good questions when he was on here? Or did you, you know, like make it rough for him? Did you give him a hard time? I didn't hear how it went, so, you know, he didn't tell me last week. If you all were super hard on him and asked him to, you know, teach you how to do like competition level layering, you know. Just send free as a standalone. Oh, yep. Hi, 9-year-old.
No, thankfully, Ed's stream was, I think it was fairly short.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I don't think it was very long. I think we kept it to it.
I was on my way out, and I saw it come up, but I didn't get a chance to watch. He did speed painting, yeah.
He did. He did 2 minis.
Ed
and
was
1
less
hour.
goofy than expected.
That is true. He was not that goofy.
Taught us how to brush lick properly. Oh, great. Don't lick your brushes. I mean, that's why I wear expendable pants, so I don't have to lick my brushes. So I'm just layering here, guys. I'm just layering more and more greens into my edges here to try to get more of the effect that I got up top. And I'm having some problems blending it in, but that's fine. I can glaze. I may just do that, actually, after I set this up. Oh, did we figure out who our winners are yet, or are we not doing our winners of the...
We can wait till the end to draw them. If we're almost done, I'll give people a few more minutes to enter.
Okay.
Non-zero value had some input about your class or something.
Class. It says a wet palette is... Oh, okay. Haha. A well palette is preferred over a wet palette, for exactly the reasons I just outlined to you. Sorry, I must have typed it when I was entering it in. So yes, well palette. Definitely. All the way. If anybody gets confused, I'll have to bring extra palettes. I wish I could get, like, extra tiny palettes. Taste the weasel. Just remember, there are chemicals that are used in manufacturing brushes, and when you lick your brushes, you are ingesting, you know, who knows what. Russian weasel butt fur. So, just you know, don't say I didn't warn you guys. Chase like, yeah, we hashtag weasel butt fur. Exactly. Yeah, that's a good hashtag. Yeah, it's my own. It's like, I love my brushes, but I don't feel the need to get, to share spit with them, so.
I like Max Powers' input.
Oh. I eat Taco Bell, can paint be much. Okay, you have a point. You do have a point. I feel bad that you eat Taco Bell. Although I used to too, in new color name as well. What, is that why Ed is goofy, all those chemicals? No, Ed is goofy just because he's run a miniatures company for, 30 years now? Like, you would lose some brain cells too if you did that. Trust us. Yes, every brush brand and palette type has a strength. Absolutely, Greek Nikos. You are correct. All right. Oh no, my brush split. Reshape brush. There we go. I'm trying to fix this patch that I got all rough on. But it's fighting me. Not I personally, although I definitely had a part in it, Silverthorn, of driving Ed crazy. I mean, I have worked for the company for over 16 years, so how much should you bring to classes for ReaperCon? Well, interesting question. What you should do is you should bring your brushes, you should bring a palette. You can bring paint if you want. There's some class paint, but it makes it a lot easier on yourself and everybody else if you have some of your own paint. Miniature is provided. Water cups and paper towels and plates are provided. Let me see. If you're going to a class where it's like a feedback type class, or even if you're going to like an intermediate techniques class, sometimes it helps to bring an example of your work, because the instructor then can get a feeling for like what your next step is, or maybe what you need help on. Yeah, we could probably stop talking about drugs in chat. It's probably a good idea. All right, let's see here. So that's not looking too... Oh, I'm going the wrong way again. Ah! All right. So that's not... It's still not as good as the top one, but it's getting there. I'm missing this more rounded highlight here that I really need to fill out the volume in this wing. So I'll start pulling my green a little bit further in. Let's see. Yeah, I know. DM Bayou Tiger. That's what you are. You're a Bayou Tiger. I finally parsed your name. Yes, allergies suck. And it's double bad because I haven't really had many of them recently. So now I've forgotten how miserable I used to get, and now I'm like, oh, this thing. Still not as bad as the Midwest, where I grew up. I was pretty much allergic to the entire state of Wisconsin. Yeah, no problem, Max. Trying still to kind of fill in that little... There we go. Now we're getting that green now further in. See? It's stretching further into the wing, which is where I want it. So, and I'm doing kind of big broad strokes. This is such a big surface, I could actually use a bigger brush if I really felt like it. But I'm being persnickety and deciding to use my traditional layering brush. It's not too bad. But yeah, so I pretty much would keep working it. I probably would bring up the highlight higher and more white to really bring out a shine if I wanted to shine, just like the light is picking it up. You see, I got my highlight right, guys? See, the highlight on the wing where the light is hitting it is actually, where the paint is wet, is actually where the light would normally fall. So my placement of highlight is correct. This is great. That's why it's nice to have a light source nearby when you're painting that you could kind of look at and see if you have placed your highlights correctly. I don't know, Mr. Scott G. I've noticed that we've had really a lot of dry stuff, and pollen isn't usually my stuff, but I do react to dust. So if the air quality is just bad because, the winds are kicking up a lot of dust, then, it could be that. All right, we're getting down. Oh, we got 10 minutes left. So questions. Any questions for you guys before I sign off and wrap this baby?
Get your entries in now as quick as you can.
Yeah. Definitely get your entries in because Justin's going to do his drawing.
I'm about to do the drawing.
Yeah. So. Awesome.
Hashtag free.
Hey, mute me for a sec, Justin, will you? Yay, I'm back. Yeah, we'll get back to Mr. Dragon probably next time. I wanted to work on his other side. One thing I do when I'm getting ready to do this, by the way, guys, is just like I said about using a light source, you know, kind of referencing how a dragon looks in the light source. I actually posed this guy with his buddy on their base earlier and took photos of him with a light source positioned overhead. And what that's going to let me do is refer to my phone and make sure that I put the highlights in the right places for what the dragon is actually positioned. Because otherwise, with a piece like this, you might make the mistake of forgetting how the dragon's actually going to look in the diorama and putting the highlights in totally the wrong places. So you don't want to do that if you can help it. So it's a good idea to take photos under a strong light source, and that way you can keep an eye on that.
Hey, Miss Ann, when you
Yeah?
get a chance, do you want to show everybody what the giveaway is for today
Oh,
again?
yeah!
For everyone who's showing up late.
So we unearthed some spectral white, which is a purpley white, kind of like maggot white, is a greenish yellow white. So it's an off-white that can be used really for highlighting, and actually it's really quite good for runic purple if you mix these two guys together. And it's a 9600 item number, which means it's not in general release. It is a special edition color. We did it for Ghoulie Bags a while back, I think. And then we also have last year's Ghoulie Bag figure, which is the smoky gray translucent Death Shroud Wraith. So we have 3 sets of a paint and a mini. 3 of each. And so we're giving away 3 lots, and the winners will get a paint and a mini. I'm going to actually, I've noticed I've got some rub off.
We could probably, while you're finishing that up, Miss Ann, we could probably go ahead and do the drawing if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just doing touch-ups at this point, so you go ahead and draw.
All right, hashtag free. I'm going to go ahead and draw now. I waited a second so you could get your thing submitted there, Red Hulk.
Mr. Scott, about veins. What I would do, I'd probably do veins on the inside, because this is going to be a lighter membrane. So it's going to be more like his belly, which is the blue, Mr. Scott. So then I would draw the veins on, and I would glaze light paint over the top of them. So I would actually highlight and shade stuff, then I would do the veins, then I would do a layer of glazing. It's the same way you do tattoos. You paint the skin, you put on the tattoo, you highlight and shade the tattoo as should be appropriate for the skin it's on. And then you put a glaze of the skin tone over the top of it to kind of make it look like the tattoo, or in this case, the veins, are underneath the skin.
All right, I have our 3 winners.
Sweet.
All right.
Oh, that ancient color Greek. I have to see if I even have an example of hallowed orange.
All right, let's see here. Our 3 winners are...
I will do veins on the inside of this wing next week. How about that, guys?
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Our 3 winners are Mimnor. I'll go ahead and announce it in chat, too. Mr. Scott G.
All right. Yay.
And Firesian.
Yay.
Firesian.
Awesome. Congratulations, guys. You get stuff.
And remember, if you won, go ahead and send me an email to reaperlive@reapermini.com. I'll put it in chat here real quick so you can see it.
All right. So there's our wing. Actually, our wing is doing pretty well. He doesn't have all his nicks and scratches like this wing yet, but we'll get there.
Send me an email to that email address with your handle and your valid shipping address, and we will get your order processed, and
Yes.
your goodies will be on their way.
Tell us where to find you. Haha. Not that we don't have most of you in the Reaper shipping computer anyway, but you know.
Yeah, that too.
So maybe, I have some super special paint that isn't released or anything. That's just prototypes that I play around with. So maybe I should bottle up a couple of those something that, you know.
Some
that nobody-
off the grid stuff.
Yep, off the grid stuff. I gave away a few of them at my seminar that I taught out in Napa. But there are some pretty colors. They may or may not show up as Kickstarter paint. We don't know.
Okay.
All right.
Well then.
Thanks for coming, guys. Oh yeah, Bird with a Brush. Yeah, bring a hallowed orange, and I'll make sure that I can match it. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed our wet blending and our layering and our talk of color and paint and veins and brushes. Oh my! And super. We will see you next week. Have a fantastic day.
Have a good weekend, and see some of you tomorrow.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.